Hello, I'm Patricia Haber-Rice. I'm the Senior Historian and Director of the Senior Historian's Office here at the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum in Washington. The Holocaust is, roughly speaking, a period between 1933 and 1945, with the persecution of Jews in Europe and other parts of the world, occupied by Germany and its allies and collaborators. In addition to 6 million Jews who were murdered by German officials, collaborative officials, allies, Axis officials, allies of the Nazis, you also have a large number of individuals murdered as a result of the Nazi regime. You have about 250,000 Roman Sinti murdered, known by the pejorative term gypsies, murdered in Europe, about 250,000 disabled individuals, widespread civilian casualties as a result of war and the particularly brutal war that the Nazis fought in the East. The idea of a master race had been circulating for several decades before the Nazis really picked this up and make this a defining part of their ideology. The idea of a Nordic race or of a master race, the Aryan race, were kind of ideas that worked in tandem to define the Nazis as a superior race at the pinnacle of all the races. One to which other races, as the Nazis defined them, were subjugated. Of course, the main perpetrators of the Holocaust were those German officials and authorities who carried out Nazi racial policy. Other perpetrators were allied with the Nazi regime, authorities and officials of client states of the regime, like Slovakia and Croatia, and of Axis allies, such as Hungary and Romania.
Die Völker werden in kurzer Zeit erkennen, dass das nationalsozialistische Deutschland keine Feindschaft mit anderen Völkern will. Ich will heute wieder ein Prophet sein. Wenn es dem internationalen Finanzjudentum in und außerhalb Europas gelingen sollte, die Völker noch einmal in einen Weltkrieg zu stürzen, dann wird das Ergebnis nicht die Bolschewisierung der Erde und damit der Sieg des Judentums sein, sondern die Vernichtung der jüdischen Rasse in Europa.
People always say, Hitler did this, Hitler did that. Hitler, according to most sources, killed one person, that was himself. He had a lot of help in carrying out the Holocaust. Not only those individuals who carried out Nazi policy, but bystanders who weren't willing to intervene. The broad support he received from the German population and from some populations where German forces occupied that area. So the circle of perpetrators is large, as is the number of victims. There are a lot of misconceptions about the Holocaust. I think one is that individuals know a lot about Auschwitz, but many individuals don't know about this so-called Holocaust by bullets, that nearly 2 million Jews were murdered near their homes where they lived by shooters who came to kill them as a community. I think the story is less widely known of the suffering of Jews in places like ghettos and forced labor, camps, concentration camps, which are not the same as killing centers. Killing centers we define as places where people came and were murdered, usually in gas chambers, almost immediately upon arrival. Concentration camps are different, and yet there was a vast concentration camp system in which Jews also perished along with other victims of neglect, of torture, of execution, malnutrition, and disease. And so the conception that 6 million Jews were gassed is wrong, and I think that's one of the misconceptions. I also think it's a misconception that only Jews died, or that they were the only victims of the Nazis. We know that the Nazis had many enemies, real and perceived. We know that in terms of their racial ideology, they also targeted groups like Roman Sinti, so-called gypsies, for mass murder. Many historians consider that a parallel genocide to the genocide of European Jewry. We know that the Nazis killed their own people, part of the most vulnerable population, that they killed disabled patients in care facilities throughout Germany. People misunderstand that when 6 million Jews were killed, there were other victim groups as well. All of that kind of weaves together as a kind of racial policy that when you put them together, it makes more sense than just murdering Jews alone. The idea that all of these threads of Nazi ideology come together to create the Holocaust, that makes this tapestry, if anything so black and ugly can be a tapestry, that those threads of different kinds of Nazi policies come together to bring this watershed event, this terrible genocide.